down. Yes.
So are we likely to see any tax relief measures? Because businesses are decrying the high taxation that is that they have encountered over the year, and also the common mwananchi is hopeful that the way you've said it, the cost of unga, the cost of milk will come down. But when you look at the whole budget and you look at the financing, it's a 3.3 trillion shillings budget. It's a big budget, and we need to finance this budget.
Yes.
Do you think this common man or this businessman will get the tax relief that he requires?
I do not want to lie to the viewers that is like the likely scenario, but we pray that it is. And I want to give a very good example with our manufacturers. Like, for example, if I want to talk like a woman leader with a gender lens in terms of budgeting, if you look at what is happening to Keroche, the taxes that were that she's supposed to pay, about 300 million tax or something like that, I think the government should be able to come up with a way of collecting these taxes so that the people who are working in those industries, the environment becomes conducive and they're able to pay their taxes and move on. Because currently, I would imagine that kind of a punitive measure is really affecting the women, and I would say for us as women, we are not happy because that is a punitive measure to women who are already investors in our country, and we expect the coin that is circulating around there is going to bring the cost of the life of the people who are depending on that. They are going to live in a better life, but currently the industry is closed down. There's nobody getting the money. The tax has not been paid. So I would like to urge the taxman to review on how they are collecting this kind of taxes, and that is just an example. There are many other avenues. We have people who are importing and exporting. All these taxes, they can be negotiated so that at least by the end of the day, we have businesses that are ongoing and the economy will grow instead of halting everybody and everybody gets hurt, including the government, because government does not have money on its own. It will get taxes from wananchi, and kulipa ushuru tutajitegemea. But then if your business is closed down because of tax, then how do you pay the ushuru? How do we jitegemea? So for me, that is something that the government should be able to look at, and the taxman, so that we can be able to salvage businesses that are coming up. Yes.
And the taxman has been tasked by the National Treasury to ensure that they collect in the next financial year 2.1 trillion shillings. And half of it, or rather 1 trillion shillings, is going to repaying the debts that we owe other countries. What other areas, in your own opinion, do you think the taxman will target in the finance bill to ensure that they meet the revenue collection targets?
First of all, it is a good move to be able to collect taxes. But then I am asking myself and everybody who is listening to this show, who is this that is going to be taxed? People have lost jobs. People have lost businesses. People have lost in big way. People have died. So what we can say, maybe what we can do is to look at these taxes, and people should be honest and pay their dues, taxes that are supposed to be paid. There are many people who evade taxes, and of course I'll give an example of like what Keroche is going through. Of course there are people who are trying to hide, and now it has caught up with her. So I think our people, we need to be very honest, and then we can be able to pay our taxes, because paying tax is not it's not killing somebody. It's an obligation that we need to oblige to. But then the taxman should be a bit lenient, because people have lost jobs, people have died, businesses have been closed down, and therefore I am thinking that our tax measures should be looked at in a better way, or maybe in a gender perspective, the gender lens, you know, something like that.
Can you probably say about widening the tax bracket, maybe to bring in the informal sector, because most of the guys or the people who are paying taxes are in formal employment. Would you suggest widening the tax bracket to bring in the informal sector to ensure that also are paying these taxes and also taxing the rich? Is there something that you can propose?
You know, taxes, because of the way it is structured, if you don't have a KRA pin, most likely you're not likely to be taxed. So maybe they need to sensitize Kenyans more so that they're able to anywhere you buy something, at least your pin is used somehow, you're given a receipt and all those things, and you're able to pay. Because Mama Bogas and the common mwananchi, there's a lot of transaction that goes on, and there's a notion that the rich people who live in maybe Karen, Kileleshwa, they are richer than the people who live in Mukuru, which sometimes is not the case, because maybe probably you are living in an ancestral land, or you are living in a house that you've been given, and you know, if you have a business and you're in those areas, chances of you being taxed and being looked at in another way by the government is very high. Whereas we should look at mechanisms to be able to reach everybody, because it's a personal obligation. If you love your country, if you are patriotic, you should be able to pay your taxes, you should be able to pay your dues, and of course now we shall be able to eliminate corruption. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Julia Chege. We are going to take a short commercial break, but when we come back we'll continue with this conversation, and now we'll look at the debt as well as the debt ceiling, and see how we can go around it, and see how the government is looking to servicing some of this debt that we have as a country. We take that commercial break.
Vitimbi Jumatatu hii. Jumuika nasi siku ya Jumatatu ili upate uhondo kamili kwenye vitimbi. Hiyo basi usikose burudani tosha kila siku ya Jumanne hadi Alhamisi saa 1:35 katika tamthilia ya Maza. As part of the government policy to achieve 10% forest cover, conservatory and protection of the ecosystem, Radio Ingo, in conjunction with Kakamega County, Kenya Forest Services and National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, will participate in tree planting at the Kakamega Forest on 8th of April 2022 and on 9th of April 2022. A church service will be held at St. Paul Muyenga Anglican Church of Kenya in Kakamega. Let's plant trees for a better tomorrow.
Kuna siku nimekuja nikakufangusha.
Hujaniangusha, lakini niliacha
kufangusha. Yes. Kielele ni nini umeleta hapa kwa koti? Now I'm asking you. Huyo mtu alikubeba na potapota. Yuko wapi? Unaweza mtambua kwa mbele ya mahakama?
Siko mbele yangu, iko sura baya hiyo chura.
Sasa msiaseme sura kuliko kusema chura. Mkiangalia tu vizuri, leza pepa kunia kama hii.
Wewe iko nani kunia?
Maswali gani hii wewe?
Wewe ndio nakuuliza swali, wacha kuuliza swali. Wewe uko kwa chama ya potapota?
Abana.
Very good, abana, toka hapo. Fenda. Sasa na mwana hivi. Mama ambaye niliangusha ni mama yako.
Si mama yangu.
Si mama yako. Kwa nini umeleta hiyo uchinga hapa, at the same time unasema you will come to be a president of this nation? How? Inaingia namna gani?
Welcome back. We continue with the coverage of the budget 22-2023, the biggest budget in Kenya's history. And we have been talking about the high cost of living and some of the measures or the tax measures that the government is likely to introduce through the finance bill in this year's budget. And looking at some of the tax relief measures as well that the government might put also as well factor in during this year's budget. But all this will be unraveled at 3 p.m. or later when the CS will be tabling that budget in Parliament for Kenyans to just interrogate it as well as experts out there. And we continue with our conversation this afternoon, and in studio with me, as I had earlier on indicated, is Julia Chege, who is a governance and leadership expert. Continuing from where we left off, we were talking about the tax relief measures now, delving now into debt. We are at 8.2 trillion shillings public debt. Are we likely to surpass the 9 trillion shillings debt ceiling by the end of the year?
Our country is a growing economy, so the answer is yes. Probably it could be yes. But one of the things that we should be looking at is this particular budget. We are talking of a legacy budget. And what are we talking about? We are talking about the Big Four agenda and the ongoing projects that are already there. And they need to be completed because we'll be going into an election, and it's a transition election that we are going to have a different president. And what is going to happen to this kind of a budget, I am thinking, is going to address maybe the roads that have not been completed, the hospitals that have not been completed. If it is security, we also need a budget for the IBC because they need to be funded, and security also needs to be funded. And therefore, this kind of a budget, I'm sure it's going to lean towards some areas more than the others. But of course we cannot forget about the high cost of living that is really disturbing or hurting every Kenyan because of like the drought that is already there. We have a drought that is really, people are dying in some parts of this country, and therefore I am thinking there will be some budget towards that, drought and famine. I'm also thinking there will be some budget in terms of a pandemic, in case we have another pandemic, how do we go about it? But the most important thing that the budget needs to address is the issue of corruption. Because if we have the money and it's not monitored, and when we are doing the evaluation, we have no accountability at all. And therefore, that process needs to be followed. If we allocate money for the hospitals, have they been built? If it is the medication, the drugs, have they come to the country? Have they been given to the right people? Or if it is it's going to be sold to wananchi. So that process of monitoring and evaluation and accountability is a process that is going to help us, as much as our debt ceiling is going to be going higher than it is right now. The country should not be in a panic mood, because the other day we were 40 million, now we are talking of 50 million people. And therefore our budget, we cannot expect it to be the way it was when we were 40 million or when we were 20 million. So it will go increasing until maybe we will reach the US the way they operate.
But what does this mean for a Kenyan? Because if we are talking about this huge debt that we are accumulating over time, do you think it is time for the government to move away from commercial loans and now get into concessional loans?
Yeah, refinancing is inevitable. So refinancing of the ongoing projects, so that maybe we can get a longer period and we pay lesser amount of money with lesser interest. That kind of a conversation is something that the government is having, and I'm sure of that because I've been involved in several of those negotiations. I know the government is trying to do that. But at the same time, the common mwananchi should not panic of that, because even the government themselves, the people in government, they live in this country, they have relatives, they have friends, and they're experiencing the same kind of a situation that we are experiencing. But what is really happening with this kind of debt at this particular time? Remember, all the politicians and the leaders, and I'll be contesting for Kagema seat, so I am talking like an insider, and most of them, they have hidden the money. They have not released the money because they want to compete, and some of them, they don't have the money also, because you remember where COVID came. That is 2 years or 3 years we've been in a pandemic. So even the work was not there. There were no contracts to work. The economy was just down, and therefore the common mwananchi should not be panicking in terms of what is happening in terms of the national debt, because that one will be taken care of by refinancing. It will be taken care of by the paying of taxes. It will be taken care of by many other factors. But of course, when we portray to the public like they are affected by that, literally you cannot tell sometimes what is happening. But then the national government is in control. So I would just want to encourage our viewers that the government is in control. The government knows what is happening. And I'm sure the priority for now is making sure we complete the projects, because you can imagine if Uhuru Highway is just left like that, some hospitals left like that, and you don't know the person who is coming next, what will be their priority. Yeah, and as much as we keep saying government is an ongoing concern, we have seen it with our leaders. For example, you find somebody has been elected a member of parliament in a certain area. There were projects that were not complete, and then that person decides that they are not going to complete those projects. They are not going to do anything. They want to undo everything that has been done for over time and do something new, of which is not possible. It is not going to. That's why you find we have stalled projects here and there, and that's why this budget needs to critically address the Big Four agenda. What is pending? We try and do up to August, where we can be able to reach, because it is not possible to leave those projects hanging, and that's why you find some PSS and CSS didn't resign to go into politics, because they know they need to complete the projects that are already there.
Looking at the budget policy statement, you have mentioned some of the areas that this budget should focus on, and when you look at it, most of the funds have gone to infrastructure. Do you think infrastructure is the right way to go when it comes to redirecting all the finances to that sector, leaving out areas like agriculture, which we are an agriculture-led economy?
Basically, Carol, I will tell you, it's a perception. It's a perception that infrastructure has been given a lot of money. But I can tell you for sure, it's just the other day the CS talked of reducing the cost of fertilizer. So the government, if we don't have the right infrastructure, then we are not able to grow. So these things, they must go hand in hand. It's like, for example, not paying salaries. I am sure you not come to work tomorrow. So it's a budget that must be met with or without money. So therefore, infrastructure, yes, has been given a lot of money, and some people, that they are complaining about it, but I'm sure in terms of agriculture, the government is focusing on that. If farm produces, they are at a subsidized rate, we are going to reap, and we are going to be able to farm, and people are going to be able to get products. We are going to sell the products, and people will be happy, and we'll have food. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Allow me to just stop there, but we'll be coming back after this short commercial break, and then we'll be going to Parliament to see what is happening there, whether the CS for National Treasury has arrived there, but we'll also have pictures from the National Treasury as he's leaving the building, heading to Parliament. But first, we go into that commercial break.
kupata mafuta kupanda kama skiza tune kwenye simu yako, bonyeza *811 397 hash.
Nashukuru serikali kwa kuongeza bei ya mafuta. Sasa niko kwa highway na hakuna traffic hata kidogo. Naomba serikali iendelee hivyo, tubaki tu watu ya gasla na heavy machine peke yake. Pia mimi naomba huyu serikali waseme kama gari yako ni below 3000 cc, gari yako
ili kupata mafuta kupanda kama skiza tune, bonyeza *811 397 hash. *811 397 hash.
Akili, this is Akili. She has a secret. Tell us. When the sun goes down, Akili goes to sleep, and she enters a world where all the animals speak. Akili. But there is something strange about this magic land. The animals speak English which she doesn't understand, but if you help her out, we know it can be done. Akili can learn English and it will be fun. Akili. I speak English! Yay!
Get ready for the next big thing.
A woman with a voice is by definition a strong woman.
So we need to start bringing out the profession in a woman.
When we demonstrate, they will come when we've been tear gassed, not when we want to pass the message.
The Dada's Show is back, a show where women get to be themselves and discuss real issues.
She cannot allow other women to come in the same space because she's getting different privileges from men. So akiona mwanamke, I go like, this is a competitor.
This being an election year, we have given an opportunity to women to express themselves and share their expectations during this critical moment in our country.
The issue of corruption and how it has impacted women and children in this country.
Create jobs for the informal sector, create jobs for the youth who leave the universities.
Hatutaki bora uongozi, tunataka uongozi bora.
Keep your heels, head and standards high. Keep abreast of the developments live from the National Assembly and the Senate.
On our members of Parliament.
The questions.
When is the construction expected to commence?
The motions.
Beg to give notice of the following motion.
The debate.
Will as many as want to be to say aye.
The statements.
A statement on an issue of general topical concern.
The petitions.
Order number 4, petitions.
Stay tuned to KBC Channel 1 and Radio Taifa for live proceedings from both houses of Parliament from Tuesday to Thursday. Live, uncensored, unedited. KBC, your national broadcaster.
Le boss Gérard Lepoussou, le président Emmanuel Macron.
The peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests we commit into our charge. Amen.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Come later.
Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Leader of the majority.
Yes, thank you. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, April the 7th, 2022. Number 1, the budget estimates for the financial year 2022-23 from the National Treasury that includes the following. 1, financial year 2022-2023 program-based budget. Number 2, financial year 2022-23 estimates of recurrent expenditure, volumes 1 and 2. Number C, financial year 2022-2023 estimates of development expenditure, being volumes 1, 2, and 3. And D, financial year 2022-2023 list of projects. But E, the budget summary for the fiscal year 2022-2023. Number F, the estimates of revenue, grants, and loans for the financial year 2022-2023 budget. And G, the financial statements for the financial year 2022-2023 budget. Number 2 is the estimates of recurrent and development expenditure of Parliament for the financial year 2022-2023 and projection for the financial year 2023-2024 to 2025 by the Parliamentary Service Commission. And lastly, the budget estimates for the judiciary by the Chief Registrar of the Judiciary were laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, February the 1st, 2022. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the papers.
The Chairman, Committee on Delegated Legislation, Honorable Kamket.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House today, Thursday, April 7, 2022. Report of the Committee on Delegated Legislation on its consideration of the traffic, driving schools, driving instructors, and driving licenses rules 2020, legal notice number 28 of 2020. I thank you.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
First segment on questions. First question is by the member for Moya, the Honorable Omboko Milemba.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 103 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing, Urban Development and Public Works. Number 1, what urgent measures has the Ministry put in place to ensure that the Busioya Mungoe Road in Ipali location and the Bukoro kwa Chief Rabor Road at the Bukoro Railway Crossing and Asikote Muraka Mwichehe Road at Asikote Railway Crossing in the Muhaya constituency are improved to motorable standards, considering that the 3 feeder roads were blocked during the recent renovation and construction of the Kisumu-Buterwe railway line. Number 2, Honorable Speaker, when will the Ministry provide suitable railway crossings at Ebukolo, Ebsioya, and Asikote areas in the Muhaya constituency to allow free movement of people and goods, considering that major economic activities take place around these areas, and in particular, Luanda Town? And thirdly, Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary consider employing local residents, particularly youths from the Busiekwe area in the Muhaya constituency during construction, maintenance, and other works with respect to railway line? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Transport, Public Works and Housing. The next question is by the member for Mwatate, Number Mwadime.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I raised to ask question 104 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Energy. Subsection 1. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide details on the status of electricity connectivity, if any, to public schools, health facilities, households, and other public utilities in Mwatate constituency? Subsection 2. What measures the Ministry has put in place to ensure that all public schools, health facilities, households, and other public utilities in Mwatate constituency are connected to the national grid? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question will be replied to before the before the Committee on Energy, Parliamentary Committee on Energy. The last question is by the member for Kinango, the Honorable Benjamin Dalu Tayari.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question 105 of 2022, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and Coordination of National Government. Roman 1, could the Cabinet Secretary state and indicate when public participation will be undertaken with regard to boundaries of the newly created Samburu and Kinango sub-counties in Kinango constituency in Kwale County? Roman 2, could the Cabinet Secretary explain why the newly gazetted Samburu sub-county was not designated as a recruitment center in the just concluded 2022 police recruitment exercise? Roman 3, what measures is the ministry taking to ensure that the said administrative unit is adequately staffed, including ensuring that administrators are recruited to facilitate service delivery? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the next segment is requests for statements. We start with the first by the member for Garissa Township.
Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning relating to the exercise of delegated authority by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury. Honorable Speaker, Section 4 of the Tax Appeal Tribunal Act number 40 of 2013 was amended by this House through the Tax Appeal Tribunal Amendment Act number 7 of 2022, and it came into force on 21st of March 2022 after the President assented to that law. Previously, Mr. Speaker, Section 4 of the Tax Appeal Tribunal Act number 40 of 2013 conferred upon the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury for all matters relating to finance with the authority to appoint members of the tax tribunal. However, Mr. Speaker, following the amendment of Section 4 done by this House, it now provides that the Judicial Service Commission, under the leadership of the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya, has the sole responsibility to appoint the members of the Tax Appeals Tribunal. Honorable Speaker, despite the provisions of the law being amended to provide for otherwise, the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury, One Ukuri Yatani, on the 25th of March 2022 this year, irregularly appointed members to the Tax Appeals Tribunal for a period of 3 years, effective 15th of April 2022, through a Gazette Notice number 3647, published in the Kenya Gazette of 1st of April 2022. Honorable Speaker, It's on this basis that I seek for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning to inquire into the matter that I have raised herein, and in particular, which powers